We're at the Charlton Board of Health meeting. We have, our agenda is going to begin at the Board of Health office, and then we're going to continue it at Selectmen's room, Jim?
Yes.
In the Selectmen's room.
For town meeting.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock, yes.
Okay. First on the agenda, we have an appointment of the new Board of Health office assistant, and it's Kimberly.
Yep.
So, Jim, you did the interview
Yep.
process. Can you bring us
Myself
up to
and-
speed?
This is Kimberly Bucini.
Puccini.
Bucini. I'll get used to it. I apologize. But through the process of the interviews, Jessica, the new Human Resources Director, and myself conducted 7 interviews, and we offered the position to Kimberly with the board's approval, of course. She was by far and away the top candidate. It wasn't even close. So we called her. She was shocked. We called her, what, an hour?
Hours, yeah, like 2 hours after the interview.
Who is this? So we've checked all the references, we've done all her background checks, she's checks out fine. She's met with Robin, she met with Andrea in the office, and I recommend to the board that we appoint her as the new Board of Health Office Department Assistant, replacing Mara, who went to Police Department, so.
Really, any
Yeah.
discussion?
No,
You okay with it?
and if they went through and they already called the background and everything, I'm happy.
John?
I'm happy with whatever Jim decides. We're gonna be working with her, so.
I think that.
But you're gonna have a problem working with her.
Yeah, right over there,
What's she doing in here tonight?
helping out with the meeting at 7.
So let me make a motion.
Sure.
Make a motion, we have
You're not gonna see. Oh, wait,
Kimberly
Kimberly,
Bucini,
a new,
Department Assistant.
yep.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Okay.
Ta-da, it's official.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Um,
The chairman signing your paperwork
The only
as
trouble
the
with
appointing authority.
First 3 weeks, you gotta pay us.
And she'll be starting tomorrow at 12.
Yes.
And this is how many days a week?
She's gonna be working Monday,
Well, not,
well,
I'm sorry, Monday, Friday.
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're closed Friday, but this upcoming week is a holiday, actually. So she doesn't work the holiday, but she'll work
The Martin Luther
Tuesday,
King Day.
Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay.
And, always flexible things happen and stuff, but she does have, your son is Miles,
Yes.
and she has no problem with, anyone watching him, so.
Yeah.
She has no issue.
Where do you live in?
I live in Oxford.
Great, well, I'm usually available by text, by phone sometimes, by email. Yeah, by email, so don't hesitate to call me at any time. You need anything?
We do keep the board informed, so we'll go over that tomorrow. There's a lot of stuff that we have to send to them to make sure they get certain things. As Matt, as the chairman, Willie comes in all the time, and we have to make sure, John Sanborn, another member, we get a lot of data and reports that need to be sent to them. We usually send them out, but Andrea and I will go over that with
Okay.
you, so.
All I can say is if you're in this office by yourself and you don't feel comfortable, lock the door. We got a glass window, it's put in for a reason, and don't be afraid to, safety first, that's all I got to say. So, not that there's a problem, I'm just,
You won't be by yourself for a
no,
while.
but I'm just saying, if for whatever reason you have any concerns, lock the door.
And that's why we keep that door open also. They keep an ear, and if you have to, you just walk over there.
Okay.
But
And
it'll be a while
they're all
before she's alone.
Yeah.
But we leave it open, everybody does their thing.
They listen up, but there are disgruntled customers every once in a
You
while.
don't know it's public building.
Right.
Yeah.
If
Great.
the building catches a fire, blow it.
Well,
Well, welcome aboard, and
Yes.
That's welcome.
see you
Glad to have
tomorrow
you.
at 12.
Alright, thank
You're
you
welcome
all.
to stay, and there's your desk over there, and talk to Andrea, or whatever.
Oh, great, thank you.
Make sure you spell your name right so we can get it on
We'll get you a nameplate.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Let's see, I'm not really seeing anything about Gary Mag on here, so I'm going to assume that under other business unknown at the time of posting, we're gonna talk about the Flint Road landfill. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes, he has some, his last report that came out, we can talk about that. He's also here for 7 o'clock for that, the meeting that we have.
Right.
So,
Okay. Do you want to talk about that now?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
So, couple things. Both of the landfills, 90 Flint Road, capped regular landfill, was a semi-annual sampling event was done in late November. I have the data tabulated, we don't have the final report yet, but the report will be finalized probably late this week, early next week, and go to DEP. Very consistent, nothing new. The 2 wells that had 1,4-dioxin in them last time, which are the 2SR, 2SD, which are more than 500 feet from any occupied residence, continue to have 1,4-dioxin in them. Concentrations are about the same, 7 to 8 parts per billion. So about the same as historical. None of the other wells have any new findings or anything. No TCE, which is of note, because TCE is a contaminant concern at the other landfill. In the 4th quarter, we are obligated to do a third-party inspection on landfill. Do that with Jim Malley. That was done, and we produced a third-party inspection report on the DEP form, which Jim has signed and Jim Tolbert has signed, and it's been submitted to DEP.
certified now.
It was due last week or the week before, that's submitted. I also submitted an electronic copy to Jim Quaid. Then associated with that, I generally produce just a memo for you guys, because the third-party inspection, while it meets the DEP's criteria, it really doesn't tell you guys a lot, because it's just in the wrong format. So this memo just outlines what we found, and bullet number 1 is there are minor areas of erosion. Definitely appears to be mower scalping. I'm not going to say anybody's at fault for that. I just think it's pretty difficult to mow that landfill without having a little bit of scalping. There's about 5 or 6 spots on some of the water berms. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the landfill, it's very steep. And then there's a water berm, and then the top of the berm comes down. So at the top of that berm, it's about 2 feet wide. You can walk across it. But it's almost a 1-to-1 slope on both sides of it, so it's very steep. I'm actually surprised it held up, but it was constructed well, it did hold up. So there's some small areas of damage, 2 to 8 square feet of damage, so less than half of this table in each of those. Not a big deal, pretty easy to fix. There is one area, which if you look at the photos, is photo 3, which is on the back side of the landfill. You have a copy
Yeah,
of this?
oh yeah, I
So-
saw this before, I think I
Okay.
got the electronic.
Yeah.
I sent it to you.
So that looks like a pretty large area. It's about 20 linear feet, and it's about a foot wide. The liner is not damaged, but it does need to be repaired. And then I tried to show you guys a couple pictures of where the vegetation and the grass actually looks good. You guys had talked about, do you mow it twice, do you mow it once? I put a recommendation in here that I think once is sufficient, and I put a couple photos in there to let you know that the grass is healthy, vibrant, and it's doing what it's supposed to. It's holding the cover on and in place.
What month was that? No, do you remember? July or something, July or August?
Andrea, do you remember when, not to
Oh, just
open up
curious.
this can of worms?
Yeah, no, it's
Do you remember when it was mowed?
sometime over the summer, right?
Well, it's important because
It's very important.
because of the fiscal budget.
Well, it's important because of fiscal budget. It's also important because of the maintenance of it. I do another town's landfill, and they mow theirs once a year. And they generally do it in October. And their concept is mow it in October, kind of cut it right down low, and then, kind of start fresh in the spring and take off. I was a little worried that if we mowed this once and did it in the middle of the summer, where we mow it down low, it'll actually kill the grass back and it won't come. But it was vibrant, it was in great shape. And they didn't mow it down, and scalp it down, they left 3 or 4 inches of grass. So I'm not so concerned about what time of year you guys do it. I think any time is okay, as long as it's done once a year.
Now, who are we gonna use again this year? We gotta do another bid?
It
or-
goes back up for bid, yeah.
Why do we have to do that every year? Can we do it?
Well, I think if we do it per year, what we can do is, we could request quotes. Doesn't necessarily have to go out to bid, but we could request some quotes. Maybe get three prices.
Yeah, that way someone doesn't knows what's there.
June, thank you.
Yep.
And then we can have it fixed. I mean, that's some good.
There's a little bit of work to fix that, but it's It's not very difficult. It would be great if the guy that's mowing it does it, because
You don't have
then
to
he won't
worry
ruin
about
it again.
On that note, speaking of hiring someone new, we're gonna have to go before the selection for additional funding.
Okay. We're at that point.
Yeah. Yep.
That was
So,
quick.
it does, so.
Okay.
I did meet with Robin today to discuss it, but put something together. And,
Well, we have an idea of what the mowings cost us the last 3 years, anyways.
yeah, we'll have a solid number and work with Gary to come up with, what we get through for the next 6 months, so. But certainly, one of the members of the board will have to come with you to the selectmen on behalf of the board asking.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay?
And the last point here is, there were 2 of the gas points, so there are gas points around the landfill that we monitor for methane. 2 of those were damaged. Actually, one of them was completely gone, couldn't even find it. I don't know if somebody ran through the woods and ripped it out and got rid of it, but it just didn't exist. So I installed 2 replacement ones I think we did them in April and then sampled them in May. And normally you put those in, bring a rig out there and everything, but we just did it by hand.
Yeah, you just
Couple
slide
$100
over
bucks.
the other one, Joseph Blue one.
Yeah, so not a big deal. So those have been replaced and they're functioning well. They've been tested twice now. We're getting good data out of them.
How deep are those?
The landfill gas points are only about 4 feet deep.
Okay.
These are at these locations. One of them is in a wetland where the water's only about 3 feet deep. Another one's kind of up on the west eastern slope.
Did you ever find the old ones, or did you just install new ones?
One of them I could not find.
Hmm.
Like I said, and we installed new PVC ones. The old ones were 1-inch metal. Gone. So the first time we did the landfill, couldn't find it. I never did a report, couldn't find it. Then I specifically went back there in the winter when you can get through and check the whole area. I couldn't find it.
Take a metal
It's metal detector around the landfill doesn't
Yeah.
work real well.
Yeah.
detector.
So we just put it in. So so the most important thing in the third-party inspection that was submitted to the state is if there's anything significant, like the liner's ripped or there's a problem, you have to request or identify it as a corrective action. And then you kind of have to go through a process, do a corrective action, submit corrective action reports and all that. None of this maintenance things or these minor repairs we need to do require corrective action.
Right.
They're standard maintenance. And what I want the board to understand is, let's do the standard maintenance so we get away from having to do a corrective action in the future, which is gonna cost you a lot of money. So as long as these are repaired for next growing season, we'll be fine.
It's an easy fix.
It is now.
Yeah.
Now's the time to do it, put a little play on it. And,
We get a storm and all of a sudden we get an erosion issue.
The grass is really good though. I don't think it's, that probably occurred during or after the mowing. It was either before the mowing or right after. So it went through the summer rain season. And those pictures were taken, November 4th.
So we get right up there in the spring and do it.
We don't really know when that was damaged, huh?
Well, I did the inspection last year and there were some areas of damage. Some of them are the same. So, again, if they got repaired and they got hit again, they got damaged, or if they didn't get repaired, they could be extending a little bit. So I think it's real important that this summer this early spring and growing season, that gets addressed. And I can walk out there, whatever we need to do, show the contract, whatever you guys need. It's not a big deal.
Does that area have to be done with either a small mower or a weed whacker or something? It looks like it's, certainly can't get up there with any large piece of equipment.
Get a brush hog. You can get rid of it.
Brush hog with a
I
tractor?
believe that's what he had,
I don't know how he was doing it.
I know the first guy, he rigged a mower and did it with a four-wheeler.
yeah.
It's very steep.
Yeah.
It's very steep. So,
Barry, is that you?
50-foot man?
Was he it?
Yeah.
she's on
That's
thin,
pretty
huh?
fun.
Yeah, I'm tall
Was
there.
that tall, dark and handsome?
It was dark. It was almost, the sun was just about down.
That's erosion.
Yeah, it looks like that.
No, so, So that's what I have for the third-party inspection of the front row, of the 90 Front Road landfill. The data on the 90 Front Road landfill, surface water and groundwater is in, it's consistent. We'll be submitting the report. There'll be no recommendations for any significant changes. There's no MCP issues associated with this. This is still solid waste, no issues. The 54 Flint Road landfill, we also sampled. We sampled that one December 4th. That data, again, is consistent with historical. The really good news is, or what I believe is good news at this one is, still haven't found TCE in the landfill. We do have 1,4-dioxin in 2 wells at the landfill, number 4D and number 5D. 5D is within 500 feet of the 4 homes that were, 3 homes that were, within 500 feet of 2 homes that we're sampling for. The other well is not within 500 feet of any homes. Data's about the same as last time, very consistent, so we'll be submitting this report to the state. On that note, that landfill closure that was done by AECom in 2008 is under DEP audit. In 2008, it sat till about 2016, 17. They've been talking to us and Jim and you guys with a couple of emails back and forth about revisiting that audit and closing it out. We had a tentative meeting set for August of this summer. They communicated back, probably because of holidays or vacations and everything, and said, why don't we wait till we get another round of data, and we'll have a meeting after that. So this is the 4th round of data that they'd asked for. So after this gets submitted, I do have to submit this to Jim McQuaid, but Greg Root, who was doing the audit, I will also notify him of that. So we'll have it. So I expect in the first quarter, or certainly the second quarter this year, the board will be getting a request from DEP to attend an audit meeting and discuss this information. The AECom report had said no further action recommended. The data suggests, at that point, not an issue. We did detect the 1,4-dioxin. We found TCE in one of the drinking water wells across the street. So now that we have an MCP issue, not a solid waste issue, it's being looked at a little differently. So stopping with this discussion, because we'll submit that report and we'll see what happens with the audit. Moving to the MCP issue, we continue to do the quarterly sampling that we're obligated to do. We are on our 3rd quarter of non-detect in any of the homes. No 1,4-dioxin in the house that originally had it, and no TCE in the house that originally had it for 3 quarters.
At the influent?
At the influent, yes. Everything is, I like to use the word clean, but non-detect for everything tested in all 4 of those homes. And again, the 2 homes had consistently had detections for the first 2 or 3 quarters. Then they went away and didn't know if it was spurious or what, and we came back the 2nd quarter, nothing there, and now we have 3 quarters. So, some people might say, well, if there's 4 quarters of non-detect, you're done. Well, I don't agree with that. DEP's not going to agree with that. But the good news is there is no impact on those homes at this point. They are still operating a treatment system at 59, and at 63, still providing bottled water. Both residents seem to be fine. We communicate with them, do the inspections. Everything seems relatively good.
At 59, did they ever sell that house when it was up for sale?
No, he took it off the market.
They took it out.
It may sell it. I asked him, but he didn't have a definitive answer.
Didn't have a problem with that.
No. I keep him, because we do the sampling there, I communicate with him relatively often, and he would tell me if they didn't issue it. It seems okay, as it says. So that's where your 2 landfills are, and that's what third-party inspection is. I have a little information on H-Foot Road if you want me to talk about that, or if there's any questions on the 2 landfills, I can answer those.
Are there any questions on the landfills?
Not on the 2 landfills, no, it's good news though.
I'm good with the landfills. We should be thinking about the mowing though. If it was done in June, we probably should get it done before June again.
Get that spot fixed.
Although if we, it doesn't matter, if it doesn't matter to you, right?
Wait until July or August and you get it in your next fiscal year, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm
The
thinking.
the other one, like I said, they do it in October and it seems to work well at that landfill. The real thing we're trying to do is eliminate any woody vegetation, start to take off, and to make sure that you don't have any significant erosion. So, the only thing I would not recommend is, March, April, or even May. June is okay, because by June, everything's pretty well established. Yeah, but when you're mowing it, you want to be mowing and knocking down a lot of the growth. I highly recommend that the later the better, just from our perspective. The roads, the weeds are this high on the roads, so it's a little bit of a challenge. We got a crew in there doing the sampling, but it is what it is. I don't really care about that. Because we sample the spring. It was summer and winter, and I just said that's not a good idea. Trying to sample my landfill in the winter is not a good idea.
Not
So
lately.
we made a request, we informed DEP that we're going to do spring and fall. So,
Okay, we're good with that.
just don't find them changing it. We only posted it a couple of months different, I find that.
Okay, sure, if you want to talk about H-Foot Road under other business unknown at the time you post it.
So I think the most relevant thing on H-Foot Road, there's a lot of important things, is there was another request by Ty and Bond in their 1,111 or 1,311 page November IRA status report. That's the most recent large document that's out there with all the information, to significantly reduce sampling. And what they were asking to do is remove several homes from monthly. If you recall, the monthly requirement basically became because of J hits or detection within 500 feet. DEP mandated that many homes be tested monthly because there was some spurious data that was changing. So they've asked that those homes be significantly reduced and those go to quarterly. They also asked that at the houses with POET systems, I think there's 13 or 14 now, I might get the number wrong, or 11, I'll have to double check, that the influence sampling be reduced to quarterly, and that the midfluent and the effluent still be done monthly. So if you picture that, you're still going to test what they're drinking, but the ones that are coming into the house, they wanted to reduce them to quarterly. DEP, in kind of no uncertain terms, Mass DEP also denies the request to reduce the sampling, so they denied the request. So a request was asked, DEP clearly said, we don't agree with that request. So, kind of 11. Also, I've kind of dramatically reduced that level of effort I've spent on looking at the data, because my initial job here is to make sure that the residents are protected and things are being done in accordance with the regs, and the ultimate goal is to get the water line installed. The water line's moving forward, so I have not been reviewing these reports to the level I had before. I need to bill you guys for November and December. I probably had an hour or two each month, whereas I used to have 10 or 20 hours. So I can't speak to all the specifics. I take a quick look at the report, I glance at the high points. I do read all the emails that come through, which to me are kind of one of the most important things, because that's what's happening to the residents directly. I'm not going to get into the logistics of does the surface water have 1,4-dioxin versus the groundwater well, because I just haven't focused my time on it. If you guys want me to, I certainly will, but I don't see the utility right now. So that's essentially what I have for H-Foot Road. Take any questions if there are.
With what you have seen, I mean, it looks like the 1,4-dioxin's been pretty solid, increasing a little bit. Have you seen any significant increases where we should be spending a little more time on it? I mean, I know the water line's going in and whatnot, but.
I think my conceptual model, or my thoughts or concerns would be the 1,4-dioxin in surface water. I have a thought and a concern about because it's so mobile.
Yeah.
As most of you know, there's 2 wetlands kind of on the side of that landfill, and they on both sides of the landfill. And those wetlands, water bodies, are sampled, I believe, semi-annually, not quarterly. And there are, 1,4-dioxin detections at 0.2 in the surface water. So if you think about that, it's coming off the landfill, out of the landfill, leaching from the landfill, wherever. I don't know how it got to the surface water, because the report doesn't say how it got there. But it's in the surface water. And surface water, we can see clearly moves away and downgrade. So that's a source of migration. I think DEP will be pretty cognizant of that, and this landfill, when it closes, will be under the 30-year monitoring program, and that 1,4-dioxin, will be a significant concern and will be included. There'll be a new or revised monitoring program for the drinking water wells that exist, or the sentinel wells that remain in the area, and surface water. So one would hope that those 1,4-dioxin concentrations in surface water would diminish. But as far as significant changes in concentrations in drinking water wells, I think you're seeing, I would call it somewhat stable, in my opinion.
I guess what I'm asking is any risk of a new CEP?
I think there always is a risk of a new CEP, and I think that's exactly why this December 5th denial from DEP came across. It says you will continue to test monthly. And I think if DEP had a level of comfort that the possibility of a new CEP is really low, they probably wouldn't agree to that quarterly. But we've sat here and talked about the new CEP at this address and a new CEP at that address. So I think as long as that monthly program continues, and the quarterly program and the triennial program continues until these homes are connected, I think the residents are pretty well protected.
John?
On this topic, the neighbor right next to me has had contamination come and go, and they've spiked recently with, I think, 11 DCA is 7, or E, and I think they're right at 7, and they're over on 3 times on 1,4-dioxin. And I had written a letter to the DEP about not allowing them to cut back the testing, because I use that, because I'm right next door, and I don't have a POET system, to know if I should even want to be showering for me and my kids in the water. And the only way I know that is by following the influence on the POETs that he has and the other people's testing every month to see where it's spiking, where it's changing, and to see if anyone could possibly be at risk, because it comes and goes over 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
They've gone down since, but they spiked a month or 2 ago. So to me, it's important to not get rid of the testing every month. And that address 66 has been having it go up and down for a while. My other neighbor, the worst one, 78 foot, has had it below, I think, the limit now for a couple months. So you really never know, and you can't tell. So my concern is it does come and go. I look at it here and there. I don't put as much time into it, like Gary said, as I used to. But it's the only thing I have
Right.
to know if, I may have an issue that isn't going to get detected every month.
John, do you
Possible.
get tested your well?
Monthly.
Monthly, okay.
He's one of the ones that's...
I went 17
he's a-
quarters.
He's a perfect example
Yep.
where the standard DEP regulation would put him under quarterly monitoring, because
Right.
he's within 500 feet. But because of the changes in sporadic issues, DEP said, no, we're doing all these quarterly or monthly.
Right.
And this is, you've read this letter, John, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, well, I was one of the ones they wanted to cut back to quarterly, because I had
Right.
17 quarters with no J hits or anything.
Right.
But does that mean it just wasn't detected when they came to test? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best we're gonna get, so that's what I have to take. But I didn't want them to cut back others from getting tested.
And, the list they wanted to cut back was significant.
Yeah, it was pretty long.
Yeah, it's quite lengthy.
It's 15, 18 homes they want to cut back. So those 15 or 18 homes continue to be tested on a quarterly basis, or monthly basis.
So just on the note about the courtesy bottled water, I know we talked about, I think, in the last meeting, but it was extended. So that's a thank you for Casella and their team for keeping that program alive. It means a lot to this board, I know that, and I know it means a lot to the residents, so grateful that that is still in place.
Is the wording on that throughout 2018, or is it kind of over?
Throughout 2018.
Throughout, so, I mean, I thought that's what I read.
Yeah, and speaking of the, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the courtesy bottled water, there was a family, I believe she's right here, had called and requested, because you have,
We have 3 kids, 3 and under, and we go through a lot of water. And the water, the courtesy water, we're not getting enough. So we're kind of, like I try not to let the kids
you
brush their
take
teeth.
Melissa's extra.
I was just gonna say, we'll send some down.
Well, and I had called Jim and I was like, we just moved here 2 months ago, so everything is new to us. I was like, do they give a certain amount per your household? Like how many people you live with or how they do it? And I think it was just a standard number for for all the houses, to my understanding. I don't really
Yeah,
know.
I did speak to Tracy on her behalf right away and called, and Tracy said, oh, yeah, let me look into it. She called back immediately and said, nope, it's what you get is what you get, whether you have 12 children or 2 or none, that's what you're gonna get. And it won't change. So, we tried, and I know that I spoke to
Yeah, I mean,
Tom
you
was
called.
pretty adamant, like, what do you mean? I
Yeah,
said,
it's
well,
crazy. If a house sells, they're gonna get the same amount. If Jess Perry was there with one person,
Yes.
now they have
yeah.
5 in the home. I mean, that's different, that's changed.
And I
Okay.
tried, and she said, Jim, I asked my powers to be, and we discussed it, and we will not alter what we give already. So, and I know that Melissa's been getting extra lately.
Yeah, I
in the
know.
bag, so she's,
And to the point where Tracy's offered to pick it up and
Well,
have it
Exactly.
so
drop it
that's
off.
the difference, but I think I was just saying that was, they're on the courtesy bottled water program, we're on the mandated bottled water because ours is
Yes,
elevated,
true.
we've got the Coke system, we've got the samples that are still coming through, as we were just talking about the monthly sampling. There's still stuff getting through our influent, they've had to come out several times,
Mhm.
replace canisters and swap them and do all that stuff, so we're kind of probably at the high end of what's going on too, and that's why I think they're, I don't know, I mean,
Makes sense.
I guess, the difference between the mandatory program versus the courtesy program, but it shouldn't make any difference. It should be,
Yeah, mandatory, they
the
told us
list of
that
them,
whatever
there
we
also.
need, they'll give us. So if we need more,
Sure,
they'll give us more.
because the DEP is mandating that if you're out, you have to, and we have, I requested the list from Matt Wagner before this meeting, and we have the list of all the homes, so we definitely, I said, I need it broken down, so.
Did they remove your transducer?
yes, we asked them to.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
got it out?
They did. They sent it out the day they said it
Yep.
Yep.
Gary, anything else?
I don't have anything specific.
John?
To answer your question.
I had a question about something else, I don't know if now's the time to bring it up or not.
You got anything else on this? Go for it.
Not everyone is being told they have to hook up. It's mandatory to hook up to municipal water. As far as I know, there's 47, 5 have not, and 1 isn't occupied, 9 Eleanor. I get questions about, can people opt to pay to hook up and keep their well for irrigation? You're gonna have people with wells who are using their water anyway to drink, shower, irrigate, whatever. So some people are asking, can they keep, I'm not one of them, but can they keep their well for irrigation purposes? I think the board has to come up with some direction if you're gonna allow it or not. Personally, I don't know how you can't, if some people can keep their wells by not hooking up. But are there gonna be some stipulations on people who don't hook up? Are you gonna mandate they have to have a POET system, since outdoor water, if it's just to the outdoors, it could still be used to, drink? Are you gonna require testing, POETs? What, are you gonna allow people to do it if they're hooking up? I mean, we need some answers from the board on what you're gonna say has to happen or not happen at the homes.
Well, this building is tied in, public water, and we did not make this building decommission their well. I believe this building is in a potentially hazardous area from the spills. North Side Road as well had similar questions at that time, and with the 6W spill. And the deal with ExxonMobil was if ExxonMobil paid to tie you in, then they also paid to decommission your well, made it a permanent solution. However, the board did not make those residents decommission their wells. So there are other cases in town where this board hasn't mandated that.
Okay.
In similar situations. We haven't talked about it specifically on the, H-Foot Road area, Berry Corner Road and Eleanor Lane. But I'm just telling you what this board's done in the past, so.
So,
I don't know what we could do, in other words, if we've already set a precedence, or if we mandate it up there, then do we have to do it on North Side Road and Old Worcester Road, and, so it's a pretty deep discussion, really.
so if the agreement says, since they're paying the hookup, that you have to decommission,
Right. That's what I thought.
to me, it seems like then we pay, whoever wants to, pays for hookup, and they don't have to decommission. And since you've already kind of allowed that, and it's a precedent, that's a possibility if they want to pay.
The only thing I believe we did was we went out for an inspection to make sure it was decommissioned from the house. So
Okay.
you'd have a well, but we made sure that there was no cross flow or a way to get it back into the municipal water. And I think we had Jim Malley do that. Is
I
that?
don't think you end up doing them.
We never did it.
We never did it.
We talked about it.
I've been going to the decommissioning of wells that the state have been put in, to monitor them, make sure they're doing them in accordance with our laws. But that's, that they're disconnected and tied in properly, but that's at no cost, because we don't have the money to do that, there's no way to recoup that. But I think that, even that horse farm that wanted to keep their well has decided to
Yeah, they're
to
not-
connect in because of even the dangers to feeding into